Hello and welcome to the first episode of what will hopefully be a very long series called Publishing House Spotlight. Basically, I'm going to show you a publishing house that I enjoy, that I like, the books that I like from them. I'm going to show you a couple of my favourite authors printed in their editions, and I'm going to give them a ranking, a rating and a review. And today we are starting with Library of America. Now this is not a new, well, kind of a new publishing house historically, because I believe they started in 1979. They haven't been going as long as, say, the Everyman, which is very much one of my favourite publishing houses. If you've been watching my videos, you know that I'm obsessed with the Everymans. You might not recognise them initially because they don't have their dust jackets off, and actually I want to get your advice over the course of this video whether you think the dust jackets should stay on the Library of America books or not. I'm torn. I like them on and I like them off. So I'd like you to give me some recommendations for different publishing houses that we can review over the long term. I'm going to look at reviewing vintage and Penguin modern classics, of course the Everyman, but let's get into Library of America and start talking about their philosophy, the printing, what the books are like. Firstly, they're very, very striking. You might have seen them when you go to a bookstore. You might have seen them on the shelf and maybe not forayed into them because they usually have some sort of saran wrap packaging on them, and they're usually quite expensive and they're quite heavy. Now I've got three different authors here, three of my favourite authors. Let's show them off. First one is James Baldwin. I've said a few times that there are three primary writers who I've felt in simpatico with over the course of my adult reading life. They've been Jack Kerouac, no longer. They have been Cormac McCarthy, still, and they've been James Baldwin. I absolutely love James Baldwin. When it comes to civil rights and homosexual writers, James Baldwin is probably the best. I think he's up there with Richard Wright, who was very much a hero of Baldwin when it comes to black or African American writing. Big fan of his, and if you take the dust jacket off of this one, which includes his collected essays, including Notes of a Native Son, which is a very popular one, you'll see that Baldwin, in the Library of America edition, comes in a lush, verdant green, and that includes the little ribbon, the little bookmark ribbon. So that's Baldwin. We also have Ursula K. Le Guin, very much one of my favourite female writers of all time, very much one of my favourite science fiction writers, though she did resist the title and the label of science fiction. She's very much a poet. Now, she was pioneering connecting with this new voice, the voice of women writers. She very much thought, in a similar vein to Virginia Woolf, that men had set down the template for how novels and narratives were told, and so she was trying to tell her stories in the way that women see the world, because she believed that women see the world in a markedly different way from men. I agree with that. I think we have more similarities and commonalities than differences, but I definitely agree with that. If you read her stories like The Left Hand of Darkness, it's deeply poetic, it's a wonderful thought experiment, and it's better than, I would say it's better, or I prefer it aesthetically to Lord of the Rings, though Lord of the Rings, obviously Tolkien's mythology is wonderful. I prefer it to Game of Thrones. Great, Ursula K. Le Guin, I feel relatively in simpatico with her as well, and I find her narratives to be exciting and vivid and wonderfully painted. And actually, if you look in the inside of this book, you can see, I'm a huge fan of this sort of thing, you can see the map for some of her world building printed here. I think that's gorgeous. Once you take the dust jacket off, this is the same with pretty much all Library of America editions. You can see their catalogue is printed, which I like that sort of thing. I'm not a huge fan of advertising, but I am very much a fan of reading through the catalogues of different publishing houses. I like how there's some information printed on the inside and outside flaps, the back and the front and the back. And then she also comes in a lush green, just like Baldwin as well. Next up, we've got Loren Eiseley. Ray Bradbury did a lot to popularise Loren Eiseley. He's a very poetic anthropologist, paleontologist, archaeologist. I think he's very much one of the best science writers of all time. He has a really powerful and persuasive way with words, endlessly illuminating. If you like science, the writings of nature and science and the universe, then Loren Eiseley is definitely up there. Let's get him out of his little box. I like the box set. And you can see you've got the immense journey in this little selection. which is highly recommended. And then in this selection you've got his writings on the cosmos and all that. He comes in a very nice sand colour. You can see nice sort of, what would you call that, beige. I like the little trim here and the matching bookmark here. Now obviously they publish American writers. The edition is set up in order to bring American writers, perhaps the ones that might have been forgotten, into more prominence. You may be forgiven for passing over these editions when you go to a bookstore because they're quite pricey. They are expensive, they're not on the cheaper end, and there's a very real reason for that, and that's because the company, the publishing house, uses very high quality, high brand, premium materials in order to make a very beautiful quality reading product. I've seen some negative reviews regarding the paper quality, and as you can see, you can kind of hear it sounds like the paper of a Bible. It is very thin, it's almost like tracing paper. Why do they do that? Well, if you get one in your hands, you can feel they're very heavy, and that's the reason for that is they've got the best quality paper, but they try to get thin paper because they want to condense as much as possible. They look quite slim, don't they? But they feel very heavy, and if you crack them open, very often these are 1,000+ pages, but it doesn't feel like it. Now usually a book that's 1,000+ pages, like Don Quixote, it's a great big whopper. It's like carrying around a brick. Les Miserables, that sort of thing. Proust, certainly, but because of the paper that they use, they're able to compress a lot into a very small space. So you can get several novels, you can get several works of non-fiction or collected essays, you can get a lot of material basically, and the paper quality itself is gorgeous. The print and the choice of font is absolutely gorgeous, and the sewn binding is absolutely gorgeous. So the Library of America, and I'm reading that from the Wikipedia here, apparently uses the highest standards of production. The paper meets the requirements for permanence set by the American National Standards Institute. Each volume is printed on thin but durable acid-free paper, and that's what allows the books to range from 700 to 1,600 pages and yet remain compact. And you can tell, yes, the paper is thin, but it's very delicate and it is durable. It doesn't feel like it's too easy to rip. It's very nice to handle. It feels like a beautiful object, and I think I love books, I love the content of them, but I do also like the medium. I like collecting them, I like holding them. I did use a Kindle for a time, but I just like the actual object to be beautiful in and of itself. I like handling it, I like holding it, I like looking at it. And I think that's the same for people who like any art form. You talk to music lovers, they love getting the vinyl, taking it out, putting it on. They like the tactile sensation. We're tactile creatures, we're creatures of touch and sense. And for that, Library of America really does excel. Apparently all volumes have the same trim size, which I think is interesting because if you compare to, for example, the Everyman's, you can tell the trim size is different, the font size is different, the paper quality is different, there is no consistency. With Library of America, very consistent branding. You can see that with the dust jackets. There's sort of a unison, there's sort of like a sense that there's a bit of a plan, a sort of ordered whole. They're even kind of numbered, but apparently the trim size is cut based on the golden ratio. If you know anything about the golden ratio, it's something that artists keep in mind in order to proportion their work, proportion how they depict the human body or different parts of nature perfectly, essentially. For the hardcover editions, the binding cloth is woven rayon, and the books are Smith sewn for permanence and flexibility. If you look up what Smith sewing is, it is the highest form of sewing and binding. It really is a premium product on all accounts. Not just the choice of what's in the books, the choice of authors, the choice of those works, the composition and the editing, the arrangement of the different works, different pictures, as you can see, is absolutely gorgeous, but the product, the actual feel of the book itself is just a marvel. Each includes a ribbon bookmark, and the uniform typeface is Galliard. Again, if you look into the font, Galliard, there's a bit of a tradition with it. It's considered a premium font. Some of my favourite personal fonts are Baskerville and Garamond, and I would say there's some similarities with those, but you tell me if you think the font is beautiful or not. You can have a quick little look there. That's from Guin. It's a huge series, they're adding authors to it all the time, and I think they've done an absolute stellar job. I remember I had a teacher once who said that American literature was an oxymoron. I could not disagree with that more. I think American literature has some of the best literary tradition in the entire canon. Globally, in the world, you're producing America some of the most fascinating concepts and some of the best stylistics that I've ever had the pleasure of reading, and Library of America understands that and delivers that. And though they are pricey, I think they very much are a premium book product and well worth checking out. So I'm going to give these a rating. Maybe we can use Shakespeare Bard heads and give it a rating out of 5. I would rate Library of America 5 out of 5. They excel across the board. Content, pleasure of handling the product. It's a very collectible as well. So yeah, I like them. I like them a lot, and I would implore you to check them out. If you want me to do another publishing house spotlight, do let me know if you've got any recommendations for perhaps your favourite publications. Then and they can be anything. They don't have to be expensive. They can be cheap ones like Wordsworth editions, for example. They can be mid-range like vintage. They can be on the higher end hardback like Everyman or Library of America. So if you've had any Library of America books yourself, do let me know. Let me know what you think of them and who you might recommend. Thank you very much for watching, and happy reading.